Hi, this is the coding teacher, and in this video I'm going to talk about the 3 things keeping you from getting to the senior engineer job level. Number 1, it's not digging into the details. Number 2 is optimizing too much for yourself and not for your team or your company. And number 3 is not aligning with the technological philosophy of your company. Before I get into the details though, please like and subscribe to get more content about software engineering career success. So right now, I'm a tech lead at a tech company called Noom. Tech lead is what they call the next level after senior. Most of the people that I work with come from Google, Facebook, Netflix, and so on. Well, not most, but a bunch of them. And because of that, I've been able to get a lot of exposure to how those companies operate. But I myself worked at AWS as well. Before Noom, I was a team lead for a bunch of different projects at AWS. And as of one point, I was the only one of 2 engineers left in a team as they moved it from the West Coast to the East Coast. I got to help in backfilling all the positions in that team, and I got to see all the new people's careers evolve over that year or so after they got hired. I think giving my background is important so that you know what my perspective is. I'm not a director or a principal engineer, but I am a senior/staff level engineer depending on which company I would be placed at. And with that background in mind, I want to talk about what the main things are that keep you from becoming a senior engineer. I'm going to recap them first real quick, and then I'm going to go into details with each of them. So number 1 is not digging into details. Number 2, it's optimizing for yourself instead of optimizing for your team. And number 3, and this is probably the most important one, is not aligning with the technological stance or posture of your organization. So let's talk about number 1 first, which is not digging into the details. I see a lot of people, they think that just because you write code fast and you implement a feature super fast, that they're going to make you a senior engineer because of that. And that's not necessarily the case. If you always stick within your wheelhouse and you always stick within the one code base but never get out of that realm, it's going to be hard to get promoted. If every time that they need a little feature implemented or a bug fix, you're the first in line and you deliver, that's definitely not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. That's definitely brownie points. But you got to take that one step further. You actually have to be able to dig into the details of how the main service that you work on integrates with other systems within the company. Don't only be an expert in the little business logic of your one code package. Don't be in a situation where you're an expert in this one thing, but then the second that they ask you to get out of there and do something with a broader scope, you're basically helpless. Don't be in a situation where the first big project that they ask you to build, you have to start building that massive knowledge about how your code package integrates with everything else from scratch. Be in a position where you're always in the background building a critical mass of broad knowledge about your company's systems. Always be building knowledge about your company as a whole and your organization as a whole. Depending on the size of the company that you're at, if you're like in a large company like AWS, you got to start building that massive knowledge early. Of course, you still have to be great within your particular scope, but you should also try to become top 10% of people in terms of breadth within a particular organization. Most of these large tech companies are broken down into like smaller orgs that are like 70 to 150 engineers, and there's cohesion within the org. So there's a common theme of things that they build or customers that they service. So that's where you should expand your scope within. There shouldn't be anything within that scope that's a complete black box to you. Obviously, when you join a new company, the first year or so, it's impossible to know about everything. There's going to be a ton of stuff that you don't understand, and you only know it from the user perspective. But your goal should be that after a year or a year and a half, there's nothing within your organization that's a complete black box. You'll obviously have varying degrees of understanding of various things, but after a year to a year and a half, you should have a high level understanding of everything, and some of the things you should understand at a detailed level. So number 2 was about optimizing for yourself instead of optimizing for your team. And I see this a lot. The other day I saw he's really like he's a junior engineer, but his job title is mid-level. And he was giving some advice on social media. He was saying, hey, look, here's a productivity hack. When you have a question and you need help from somebody, actually fire off that question to 4 or 5 different people at the same time in DMs and Slack. That way, you'll get a faster reply and you'll be able to find out not only who replies to your messages faster, but you'll get an answer faster and you move on with your task faster. You'll save time. Can you imagine if everybody did this? There'll be mayhem. You know, like we're all messaging 4 or 5 people for a particular question. Somebody replies first, and the other 3 or 4 people are still wasting time reading that message and replying. Nobody would get any work done but replying to Slack messages. So this is like the opposite of what you want to do. This is like the opposite of what you want to be if you want to be a senior engineer. If you want to be able to make that move to senior, you got to think process. You got to think scalability. You got to think in terms of how can you behave, how can you do things and conduct yourself in a way that if everybody did them that way, it would lead to a better company-wide or at least organization-wide result or at least team-wide result. Don't think about optimizing the result for yourself in the immediate term. Think about optimizing the result for the company. Think about how to identify inefficiencies and find ways to get out of them. Find ways in which people are wasting time and try to create new tools or processes to lower the waste. Don't create waste. Going back to the above example, the way a senior engineer would think about that would be something like, hey, look, I've noticed that billing related knowledge has been concentrating on Alyssa and everybody's pinging her for billing related things. And this is probably hurting her productivity and everybody else's. So if you see a situation like that, you might create a Slack channel like, whatever, billing ask for people to come and ask any billing related questions. And because billing is the expertise of this one engineer, Alyssa, she is going to be answering most of the questions in the beginning. But as she answers more and more questions in a public channel, other people are going to be picking up expertise. And then the knowledge is going to spread and you're going to have a centralized place where anybody can go and ask a billing related question. And somebody, whoever picks it up first. So it's still the best of both worlds. You still get a fast answer because you're putting the question in a public forum and multiple people are seeing it. But then there's no duplicate work. So you optimize on the whole notion of sending a question to 4 or 5 different people at the same time. You achieve a similar result without hurting the company. So that's number 2, about not optimizing for yourself. And finally, number 3 is not aligning with the technological posture of your organization. Before I go into this one, I'm going to give a caveat. Sometimes the technology posture of an organization should change and needs to change. And being the shepherd of that change will actually help you on your journey to becoming a senior and maybe even higher than a senior engineer if you have provable, demonstrable, good results. With that aside though, there's almost never black and white situations and right and wrong answers in tech. So because of that, there's situations where you might need to change the technological stance, but there's also others where having an imperfect but standard way of doing things is much better than changing. And I think that's how it is in the majority of cases, to be honest. So that's what I'm going to talk about here. If you go to AWS, for example, it's literally forbidden to use relational databases in many service teams. You're strongly encouraged to use DynamoDB, because dogfooding and because it's a platform as a service database that simplifies a lot of things and it works really well and it's cheap. It's an awesome product and it's owned by AWS, so why not use it? At least when I was there a couple of years ago, you needed a special permission from like a super mega director guy in order to use a relational database. And you need to prove that the use case merits it. And that's just an opinion that they have. At AWS, everybody recognizes it's just an opinion. They don't think of it, of this rule as a universal answer for all engineering questions. If you go to Twitter, for example, they use relational databases and they have an obscene amount of data and traffic, much more data and traffic. Some parts of Twitter have much more data and traffic than many AWS services. So clearly, relational databases work just fine. But everybody still respect that rule at AWS. In my current company, Noom, there's a bunch of opinions they have too. These opinions make sense within the context of this particular company, and they're going to lead to good decisions and fast decisions in most cases. That's the important part. In 90% of cases, the decisions are going to be fine. In the other 10%, they're not going to be so fine, but you make up for that with the speed of delivery and speed of decision making. If I'm a mid-level engineer, and I'm going to be there fighting these opinions all the way, fighting the process, fighting the way they want to discuss design documents, fighting the preferences for a particular type of technology, fighting this and fighting that, and just not aligning in general. If I take that attitude, I don't deserve to be a senior engineer. Because from the perspective of the company, if you put somebody in a position of leadership or authority, and all they're going to do is undermine your processes and values, that person is undoing all the hard work that you've done in establishing direction. I've talked about this in videos before. Having direction, having opinions that allow for fast decision making is much, much more important than making perfect decisions in every individual scenario. Because making a perfect decision is going to take like 2 months in many cases, if not most. 2 months of back and forth and talking about the project to different people, driving consensus, getting design document review after design document review, etc. Having that tech posture to narrow down and cross out a bunch of options is going to lead to the company moving way, way faster. And that's what the leadership is trying to accomplish. That's actually the job of the VP of engineering or the principal engineer of your organization, whatever it might be. By not aligning, you're getting in the way of that. You're like sabotaging them. You're doing essentially the opposite of good leadership. So in order to really succeed, you have to align. Align yourself with the tastes and preferences of your company as far as technology goes, and keep that alignment in mind when you're doing anything. For example, you want to align yourself on your beliefs on how much tech debt is considered good or bad in that company. Which things are considered productive tech debt, which ones are not? Which databases are considered good for the use cases of that particular company, and which databases are not? How do you build a particular system to system integration? How do you consume queues? What type of protocol do you use on top of HTTP, like gRPC or just regular web requests with JSON, whatever? All of these things are tastes and preferences of your company. Just align with them. They're usually fine. There's no set of popular tools that you can't build software with. There's pros and cons to everything. But if you're fighting over 5% improvements, you're actually just slowing down the whole company. Remember that your promotion will go through a promotion committee, and that committee will include some higher ups in the engineering department. They're going to ask themselves, is it a smart move to make this person a senior engineer? Is this person a good steward of the engineering values that we've spent years working on and refining? And you want that answer to be a resounding yes. So that's it. Once you cover the above 3 basics, you'll be well on your way to establishing a reputation that you can be a senior engineer. And you can be trusted to promote and be a steward of those engineering preferences that the engineering leadership within your organization or your company has been working to establish. You can be trusted to make process improvements that have a large impact, and you have a holistic vision of the company's systems. So that's all I have for you today. Hope that was informative, and I'll see you all next time.